Hey everyone, just getting back again about how to build beams this time. So what I do is called the U-beam, and it's just hollow. All you're doing is you just buy a couple pieces of like 1x6, 1x8s, whatever you wanted to build. What I got here is these 1x6s that I'm going to teach you how to rough them up, or de-stress them is another way to say it. And so what I use is I take some just outdoor bricks with a little rough edge on it. This one like broke in half, so I just picked this up. And then if you really want to get real aggressive with it, I use this wall retaining brick that I'll beat down onto it. Another thing is that I discovered is that if you use tire chains, if you got them hanging around, I'll teach you how to use these to really de-stress your wood. So let me show you. It does take a little bit of work. A little out of breath here, but it's a good workout if you want to get some workout for the day. But as you can see, what I was doing is pounding, hitting them hard, and then I laid the chain on them and pound them again. And what that does is give it a really good, kind of a rough look to it. So it looks like it's really de-stressed. So now we'll take them inside and put them together, sand them, and stain them. Alright, so when you're going to build your beams after we've de-stressed them, then what we're going to do is we're going to nail them together. So what I do is I put one on the bottom, two on the sides, and then you're going to need clamps to keep it from warping and kind of force it back into a straight beam as much as you possibly can. So what we're going to do is I'll show you how I do it. I also put a 1x1, but I'm out of them, so I'm going to use a 1.5 little board to go in the middle to help hold things together. So you can see I'm putting the little one right up here. You want to line everything up. So you're going to want to make sure that you are lining up your corner to be very flush right here. And if you have to work your way on one side and go down the board, then that's going to be the best bet to keep it as straight as possible. Best tool that you can ever get. No air compressor or anything. So what I do is we're going to turn this Okay, so I got this one side done. Now we got to put the other one on. So now you can release your clamps. This does take some practice. I've had to build a few beams, and I've had a little bit of issues and stuff with it. So my suggestion would be is that if you need to do a few practice runs, that might be a good idea. also have a little stapler that I use to go on the inside. My biggest suggestion is don't ever be afraid to put in as much as you want into these boards, because if you're going to hang them up on your ceiling, you want to make sure that over time, depending on your climate, on areas that you live in, that it's not going to warp and spread apart. So my saying, the more the merrier on getting these corners nailed together. So this is going to be a very good example of to show you you're going to be dealing with warped boards. So this is going to be the easiest way for me to show you how to force that board back into place. So as you can see how bad my board goes out. So what I'm going to do is take my clamp and I'm going to slowly move it down and nail at the same time. So then I will force that board to come back in. And the other thing you can do is use the end of the board to bring it in and out to help with leverage. So I've got it straightened and the corners lined up to the middle. So now the board is going inward. So now I need to pull it out. And I'm going to line it up down here and nail it. Then again, put some staples in it. And always remember to use finish nails. Doesn't matter the length of them, but you don't want to use anything with a big head on the top of it that is going to show through the wood, because once we stain it, though, this nailing and the finish nails will really not show, so it'll make it give that effect of a full log, like a big log that you're hanging up there. A lot of people who see these always think that they're solid because of the way I finish them. Again, more the merrier. It will not show once we get the finishing done on it. There you go. So let's have a closer look at this. But now you can see how the edging is going to go. And my boards were really warped, but by forcing them together gave me a clean edge down the side right here. Now you're going to have this gap right here. So I will show you how to cover this up. And then don't ever worry about the inside. No one's going to see it. Okay, so this is something that I have discovered on my own to make it even look more authentic of a like a log that you're hanging up, a beam in your house, is now we can put the two boards together. We need to kind of blend them and give them a kind of texture. So kind of to explain what I'm trying to say is that you see that this is a very straight edge, okay? We want it to be more rough. So what I've done and what I suggest to do is go to your local like hardware store or anything, and what you're gonna do is want to pick up, this is a chisel, I don't know the exact word name of it, but you use this in the welding, so it will be in the welding section to chisel off your beads after an arc weld. So what I've done is, if you can see, is I just take it and just strike So this is a little bit, again, building these beams are labor intensive. But as you can see now, there's, now look at my edge. So now it's given that rough edge. So to give you an idea of what I'm trying to do, I have a finished one right here. So see how my edge, and when you stain it, it goes dark. So it gives it that appearance. So when you're hanging it up, it's going to look like this. So I chisel down to give it a smoother, or I mean not smoother, but a rougher edge. And then we'll sand it. All right, welcome back. So now what I've done is I've chiseled the end, like I was telling you, with my little chiseler here, okay? One thing I was going to suggest, don't go buy like a wood chiseler, because the edges are very sharp, and if you whack it into the wood, it will dig very deep in and take a huge chunk off of your edging. You don't want to do that. You just want it to be a rough edge. The thing is that I love doing about rustic design is that there's a lot of room for error, and everybody's going to look at it and think it's amazing. Making it look more organic is the way to go. So like you can see, I've gotten my edge all chiseled here that I've beaten down. So you can see that. But another thing that kind of happens, and you can use wood glue if you want. I particularly don't, because it does make a mess. It's gonna be rough anyway. And also another thing with wood glue is that if you use it on your seam in here and it comes through, even if you wipe it off, that glue will be hard to stain. So you'll have glue showing if you try to. So I typically stay away from it. So what I'm going to do now is show you is that while I was chiseling, it separated a little bit, which is fine. No worries. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna reclamp it. So doing the reclamping, you can see it brought my edge back together. Now one thing that I love to do that I've discovered that really helps, also wear gloves. You will get huge slivers in your hands if you don't have good thick gloves on. So in my edge right here, you can see that it's been chiseled out. I'm gonna take my stapler, go right into it. Like I said, if you use finished nails, finished staples, you won't even really tell it. It hides so beautifully inside the wood. And another thing is to think about too is, like you can see right here, that some of my nails came through. So again, this is supposed to be rustic and really rough looking. Take a wire cutter and just cut them off. Easy, don't worry about it. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna teach you how to sand them, and then we'll get staining. Okay, so now we're gonna get sanding. One thing I just noticed, I bought a new wire brush and I didn't realize it until I opened it, but you can see how it's spun. Each one of these are spun compared to how this one is just all open. I tried this one and it really ripped the wood up to not give it that finish that we want. So be careful when you're buying something like this. It needs just to be open like this. So big things here when you're doing stuff like this. You need to think about safety. Eyes, ears, and nose, and mouth, knees and toes. No, just kidding. Because the dust you can breathe in. I know I am a COVID ICU nurse, so I understand that sometimes it's hard to get materials that you need. I would recommend, it's cold outside, it's snowing, I can't go outside, so I'm gonna use this, but if you're outside, you can just use a regular mask, so you're not breathing in so much of the dust. So I am going to go ahead and put this on, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna sand this. Gloves. There we go. So with using the grinder, it will leave, you'll see grooves in it from the wheel. All I would suggest is you just take some sandpaper. Oopsie. I dropped you guys. So I just take some sandpaper and just kind of lightly go over it. If you have a hand sander, that would work too. But now you can see this rough edge that I put into the sides here to make it look like it's one log is now blended in. And with that putty we put into it, it helped hide that edge around there. So now, some of it's still showing, but that's okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it. But now, I'm just gonna run a sandpaper over it real quick, and we'll start staining. Okay, all you handyman and handy ladies. So now comes the fun part. So to recap, we have taken a normal a 1x6, and took it outside. Took rocks at it, beat the shit out of it, tire chains, to give it a really distressed look. Then we put 3 of them together, so you can see the U-shaped beam is called. Then we chiseled the edges over here. Then we put the putty on the sides to help fill in the gap to where all the boards meet. Sanded it with a wire sander, and now we're ready to stain. So like I said, staining is up to you. Whatever you want to stain them, there's tons of stains out there. The stain that I am using is, it's dark walnut. This is my own creation from growing up with a grandmother who painted ceramics and stuff. But if you go to Michael's, you can get some of this art, and it's a antique wax cream type thing. So we're going to use that. And then I use Gunshot as well. So it does seem like a lot. You don't have to do this. I'm only doing this way because this was a way that I was able to match the wood, the original wood that's in our house, of like the doors and the beams and everything else. So I'm trying to match them. Another thing that I discovered that made life really easy last time, if you go to Home Depot in the paint section, these are cheap styrofoam. If you fill the top of them with stain, you can easily just rub right down it and stain it. It's so easy. So let me show you what I mean. Another thing you're going to need are rags. Get rags because you want to wipe the stain off, because if you leave it on there too long, the wood will soak it up and it'll be darker. If you want it darker, leave it on. It's up to you. You can put as many coats as you want. Like I said, this is the part where you can be creative. So like I said, so I'm just going to dump. Oops. Make sure you set up a good area too, because this makes a mess. So, got that on there. And you can see it's going to be darker where the wood's going to sink in the stain more where we beat it up at. So a thing that I actually forgot which is why I'm making these videos, because, you know, little things go a long way. But I forgot to shake it, because when I stain this, this is pretty, actually, from the previous ones I've done, is really light. It's too light for me. So I think a lot of the stain settled at the bottom, just like paint. So let's try this again. Yeah! See the difference if you shake it? So I'll just take one of my rags. I'm just going to wipe it down. Gives it a darker stain. And like I said, you can leave it just like this and hang it up. Or like I said, what I do is then I take a little bit of a red coat. So this is that Gunshot. And I run down it, which again, my bad. We forgot to shake it. There. So this will give it a reddish tint with the dark tint. So if you ever painted, done like an oil paintings or anything, you'll know that you can mix colors. Same thing with staining. I'm going to go ahead and mix it. So then what we'll do is we're going to take I'm almost out of this one, so I got a different one we're going to try. It's a dark satin acrylic antique wax. So by putting the antique wax or some type of, yeah, pretty much just think of antique wax. What it does is then we'll even fill in those holes more and give the wood a good antique finish. So I'm just trying to use up this one. Both of these cans that I'm using will give you the same look, because as I've said, it's just an antique wax. So now, for you guys to have a closer look at this, now you can see how it looks. So my edges, wherever we chiseled at, is darker, and it gives it that appearance of a log. And all of our beadings on it now have come to light, and it makes it look really more authentic. And like I said, this is really cheap, easy way. Each one of these boards are like 10 bucks, so you're looking at about $30 per beam, plus any stains or any other tools you need to get. And that's it. And then we're going to hang them up on the ceiling. All right, guys, I'll be back.